Welcome back, Steeler Nation, to the last episode before the draft. Northern Steel Podcast with episode 99. Oh my gosh. Episode 99. Who would have thunk we'd be here now? I'm your host, Dominic. With me, as always, is my brother, Chris. And like we always do, give me that famous 99.
There's a few names that come to mind, but we got to go with the classic, the Beard, Mr. Brett Kiesel.
I mean, that is actual legend. For sure. That's an actual legend for the Brett Kiesel, the Beard.
Or Levon Kirkland.
And also kind of a legend, too. A little before our time. But heard great things. sound like an asshole. But welcome to the Northern Steel Podcast. This is the last episode before the draft. Episode 100 will be the draft. Me and Chris are going to be there live in Green Bay, interviewing and talking to people, making jokes, drinking lemon juice. You'll hear all about it. But today is our last prospect. The Steelers have met with tons and tons of prospects. You just listened to the running back episode. They actually finished off their top 30 visits today. What I mean by that is that they've concluded the list. Every player who is in the top 30 visit has been assigned. They will do the meetings with the Steelers. And the last player added to that list today was Trayvon Henderson, who we talked about very, very, very briefly last week as a running back option. He's from Ohio State, back up to Quishon Judkins, but still rated very high. He's a round 2 guy. We'll see what happens. I mean, Steelers could get him. I don't think he's an option at 21, but some people are saying he could be. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I wouldn't be thrilled about it, but I do like his tape a lot. But I know there's other positions of need out there. There's cornerback to look at, but those seem to be like a couple good ones at the top and then nothing for a while. There's safety that if people have talked about. I know Steelers have looked at Nick Aminuwari as a potential option. Malachi Starks, I've heard, sometimes been to the Steelers. But we're not talking about safety. We're talking about the premier position in the league and probably one of the worst classes since Kenny Pickett. Ironically, because that's when we're drafting a quarterback again, potentially. And it's the quarterback class of 2024. The quarterback class is... we all know, I think, if you don't know, the top of the pack is Cam Ward. Sounds like he's going to be a lock at pick 1 for the Tennessee Titans. And then after that, it's a huge mess. And we're going to talk about the quarterbacks I think the Steelers could go for. The Steelers actually have met with quite a decent amount in the pre-draft visit. Let me get a refresh on this. I think I refreshed it.
I just can't wait to get Will Levis.
They've met with 4. Chris and I will be talking about 6 quarterbacks. They met with 4. I think 2 of the quarterbacks we're talking about, I've heard the names before with in relation to like maybe they've talked to them a little bit, maybe they haven't. But these guys for sure are pre-draft. All of Chris's quarterbacks are actually pre-draft visits. Only one of mine is, and I'm going to start with him. The quarterback I'm going to start with is kind of maybe potentially surprising, but if you've been keeping up with NFL news, maybe not as surprising because it sounds like he's really falling down the boards and sliding. And that would be the potential possibility. Prepare your body, prepare your brain, prepare your soul for Shedeur Sanders. Big sigh from Chris.
Dude, so excited.
Big sigh. This is a possibility, so let's talk about it. You know what we always say. You may like a pick, you may not like a pick, but if they're a Steeler, time to root for them. That's what we always say. Let me give you a little bit of stats about Shedeur Sanders as Chris watches the highlights here. Shedeur Sanders is 6'2", 215 pounds, obviously the son of Deion Sanders. That's his claim to fame. He had 4,200 yards last year, 37 touchdowns, and 10 picks with a QBR rating of 75.5. He had a completion percentage of 74%, which is very, very good, very high. Last year, 69%, 70%. He's kind of lived on the 70% the past 3 years. I'll go into his combine prospect from NFL.com, which hasn't always been super accurate compared to what I'm seeing on tape. He's prospect rate is a 6.3, will eventually be a plus starter. He is 6'1", 212 pounds. His production score was an 87, which is first among on quarterbacks because I think he has the best stats. Probably his athleticism score, though, which I will talk about, is a 14, which is pretty low down the board. Total score was a 79, which is third of all quarterbacks at the prospect. Projected round 1, obviously. he potentially might drop to the Steelers because it's really sounding like the Browns are going to draft Travis Hunter. It's really sounding like the Giants are going to take Abdul Carter at number 3. That would leave the Saints, who Derek Carr just had a really big news just broke about Derek Carr, where he potentially might have to miss all of next year with an injury. So at 9, the Saints could take Shadir Sanders, kind of fits with that offensive scheme with Kellen Moore there. But if the Saints don't take him, he would fall easily down to pick 21. And that's where he could go because the Steelers did meet with him in the pre-draft visit. Some of his strengths are plays with all the confidence in the world, keeps his eyes downfield in the pocket, shows off ability to pump and reset when the play appears not to develop. He's able to buy himself some time and move his launch pads when needed. He's willing to stand in and take punishment, which that does show in the highlights. He gets his hips squared to his target. He steps into drive throws between the hashes and puts it on frame. He allows routes to develop and throws with timing into zone windows, hits receivers in stride and leads them into the yards after the catch. I don't know about that one, to be honest, unless we're talking about short slants. And consistently accurate when he throws from a balanced platform. I do agree with that. I think Shadir is a very accurate quarterback. I think what's one of his biggest pros is his accuracy. I mean, dude had a 70% completion percentage, 75 last year. His weaknesses they talk about are spacing and clearly defined route combinations make decision making easier. I don't know what that means for a weakness. He drops beyond proper pocket depth, so he'll end up in the rush lane for a sack. He throws with a long release time, has completions on tape that will be interceptions in the pros. Inconsistent, bringing his lower half through his delivery. Needs to become okay with taking profits and moving on, like the shorter throws. Appears too confident in his off-platform game despite his lack of arm strength. Doesn't offer up mobility quickness from the pocket, which with his athleticism score being lower, and much too willing to take a big sack instead of throwing it away. He'd rather look for the big play, so I end up taking a big sack instead of throwing it away. When you watch the highlights, Chris, I mean, he's not bad by any means. And I think this stigma, this sighing that you're hearing when I talk about Shadir Sanders is all based on the fact that he's considered a first round pick. And I think that's where the sighing comes from. I think if you told me, this is not a hate to Shadir Sanders or any of his family lineage. If you just watch the tape and you told me, here's a 3rd round pick option for you, I'd be like, okay, I can live with that. Because I think he's extremely accurate. I think he's very poised in the pocket. I think he's delivering hits. He's always got his eyes downfield, which I do like. He's got good anticipation, but he is, however, and the rest of the quarterbacks I'm going to talk about, don't get me wrong, Shadir is not alone in this. He is heavily lifted up by his receiving core. I think his receiving core is very, very good. Obviously, with the Heisman winner himself and Travis Hunter. There's also oh my God, I'm forgetting their names, but they make some great catches here. He doesn't have one thing that bothers me too is mostly his arm strength. There's a lot of throws that just don't have the zip on it, so that he's able to that would be picked off in the pros, but are completed here. This throw to end the game, I know it's kind of a Hail Mary, but that's all receiver mostly. There are some plays where he could throw it up and get a pick, get picked off. He doesn't have the arm strength rate to get that, but he does. I do think he has the vision and stuff. But let me talk about the negatives super quickly before you give your thoughts, Chris. I know I've kind of talked about the athleticism because it's not there. The arm strength is not there. There's a Steelers Twitter page called Steelers Takeaway, who I actually have really good conversations with. I think he's a very logical person, whoever runs that account. He had a huge thread about how Shadir Sanders is considered one of the top pro-ready quarterbacks in the draft, but he could be developing further. But he argues how much more can he really develop with the success he's had as a nepotism kind of baby. His dad being Deion Sanders, he's been around pros his whole life. He's probably had the best character to that. How much better is he going to get athletic wise? How much better is he going to get looking the field wise when he's probably getting the best attention on that right now currently, right? So there is that, and I do kind of agree with that. But he does have the confidence. I do think he would work hard. And something I want to bring up, and this is for all the quarterbacks. This is just, and as well as the quarterbacks Chris is going to talk about too. It's for all the quarterbacks. I do think truly, this is not sarcasm, people, that the Steelers do have a good roster for a young quarterback to try to develop in, because you're throwing to DK and Pickens on the outside, and you can't ask for much better than that. especially for Shadur, who a lot of his highlights are he's getting bailed out by deep throws by his receivers. You got George Pickens and DK Metcalf who are going to bail out, or that's their specialty, is bailing out their quarterbacks. You got a nice tight end and 5-year tight end and Pat Freiermuth. You've got some good running back weapons that they're going to want to run the ball with. Tomlin's not going to ask you to do too much in terms of throwing the ball away. This is a very good situation for him to try to succeed in the NFL. And I think the Steelers do have the best roster for all these quarterbacks I'm going to talk about to do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of thoughts that kind of come to my mind when talking about Shadur Sanders. I mean, he is a heck of an athlete. There's no question there. And especially when you have Deion Sanders as your dad, the athleticism kind of, it
should be better, to be honest.
Realistically, it should. But the dude also has 5 kids that are all weirdly named after him to some capacity. So it probably got spread out between each of them, a little bit more. It wasn't just one defined Deion Sanders Jr., even though there is a Deion Sanders Jr. Anyway, no, I hear everything you're saying. I think when it comes to looking at all these quarterbacks, something that, would make me feel a lot better, which I have no idea what's going to happen here, but, allowing some of these guys to have a mentor to learn under. I know that Dom mentioned the Steelers having a really solid situation for a young quarterback, and I agree. You have pretty amazing weapons all around you. But, what's always been our downfall is not the players, but the coaches. And I don't know if Arthur Smith is necessarily the guy to lead, grow, and develop a young quarterback. Whereas I would love, and I know we wouldn't see this rookie quarterback play this year, but I would love to see him learn underneath a veteran like Aaron Rodgers, even, which is kind of my big thing for getting him. But I'm also kind of really getting over the whole Aaron Rodgers, the weight game, and if it's even going to happen and whatever. But
I think you don't even, if you're a Steelers fan, don't even have Aaron Rodgers in your mind. And I would actually more encourage you to assume it's going to happen, but don't worry about when. I would just assume it's going to happen.
Yeah, and another thing to him is, talking about all the perks that he probably had growing up, working with the best of the best, whatever, and this is not I'm not dumping on the University of Colorado by any means, and I know a lot of it was playing with his dad and things like that. But obviously he started at Jackson State and then went to Colorado. And to me, it's you're obviously not facing the same level of competition through those programs. And when you have your dad as the coach who wants you to be the top pick, a lot of the offense is going to be tailored specifically towards you and your success, with also maybe Travis Hunter in there, hence why he was a big dude. So again, not that you can't be successful or that Colorado can't be bringing them into the name, but his first year with Colorado, the record was pretty trash, to be honest. And last year they still lost 4 games, which isn't a lot, but in college football, that you're not competing for anything there. So I don't know, maybe you're the best talent in that specific realm of football, sure, but also to not just blow teams out, have an undefeated record or something like that. Wins are not a quarterback stat, even though a lot of times they get placed on the quarterback. But still, in college football, I feel you have a lot more influence from that position than not. And I don't know. I think that those are my setbacks with Shadur. And I agree with him being a first round talent. I think that's what kind of hinders my thoughts on him.
Let's be frank too. His O-line wasn't very good either at Colorado. So there's struggling. It wasn't. It's just factually. Factually, it wasn't. I'm not giving an excuse. I'm just saying factually, his O-line was pretty absolute garbo the past 2 years. But his receivers are very, very good, and that's the trade-off there on why he's able to perform. I do think there is an argument to be made by other fans out there that beggars can't be choosers, and we were trying to find a quarterback, or the Steelers have been trying to find one the past 5 years and have been failing, and you have one that's a first round, quote unquote, talent, and it drops in your lap at 21. There's an argument to be made that you should just take it because you don't have anything, why not? You know, I would make the argument, I've made it before, that I do think that potentially next year's class looks better on paper. We would find out after the year. I mean, this year's class had a better 2023, and a lot of them went down in 2024. On paper, this 2025 class does look better, but we got to see how the season plays out, first of all. But there is an argument to be made that if there's a quarterback there that could be your quarterback for the future, could be your franchise guy, you should take it. And we'll see what they do. But I was telling Chris right before this podcast started that, like I said, I don't think the Browns are going to take him at 2. I don't think the Giants are going to take him at 3. If the Saints pass him on him at 9 and he falls to 21, let's say the Steelers actually don't want to take him. I think there's a real scenario where they could pick up some draft capital because the Browns and Giants are going to take him next in the second round. Browns have the first pick. You could call it the Giants because they're not going to trade with the Browns. And you could say, hey, come up to this spot, give me your second round pick, give me your second round pick next year, 2, while you're at it, and come up and get this. Come up and get this guy. I'll drop down to 34, and I'll pick from there. And I think that could be a possibility too, because there are some other guys that could pick up that could be useful still. Here's the next guy that I'll talk about. That'd be Jalen Milroe from Alabama. The reason why I want to talk about him, he's not in the top 30 visit, but he fits exactly what Tomlin keeps talking about in meetings, even though sometimes he talks one way and then actually doesn't follow through with the way he talks about things. But he has mentioned multiple times that he wants a mobile quarterback, and look no further than Jalen Milroe, the rookie poor man's Lamar and Justin Fields. Jalen Milroe had 2,800 passing yards last year, 16 passing touchdowns, and 11 picks. Not great, right? But because he's such a dynamic runner, you have to add in, because that is a true part of his skill set, of his weaponry. You have to add in those stats combined onto it. I think you have to, because that's what he's bringing to your table, because that's how he uses his legs as a weapon. It's not a secondary to him. So if you add on to that, in 2024, he also had 726 rushing yards and 20 touchdowns, more rushing touchdowns than passing last year. So that would be a grand total of 3,500 total yards and 36 total touchdowns to 11 picks. Jalen Milroe is a 6.14 prospect grade, which is a good backup to develop into a starter. He's 6'2", 217 pounds. Production score is a 75. Athleticism score, no surprise here, a 99. First overall of everybody. Total score was an 81, second on the quarterback list. That athleticism score really pushed him up high. I don't even know what his 40 time was, to be honest, Chris. I don't know if you could find that for me while I'm talking.
Yeah.
But he's draft projected around 2 or 3, and his NFL comparison, someone the Steelers fans you might know, is Cordell Stewart. That's his NFL comp, the Slash himself.
I have it.
Oh, what is it?
It was a 4.37 at his pro day.
4.37. There you go. Speedy. Did you hear his NFL comp?
Cordell Stewart, baby.
His strengths are his unflinching when he delivers throws in the face of imminent contact. He's got NFL arm strength, delivering dive throws and velocity, which I do agree with. I think he's got a big arm. Ball comes out split second if he needs it to. Accuracy improves when he minds his weight transfer. His 2023 tape shows a more consistent deep ball passer. Some got a little bit worse last year, like a lot of players did. Good things happen as a passer when rolling out to the right, obviously. He finished his career with 33 rushing touchdowns, like we talked about, 20 last year, and back-breaking scrambler when the defense loses integrity. Weaknesses: he threw 5 touchdowns and 10 picks in 2024 SEC play. Youch. 11 of his picks, 10 of his 11 picks against SEC. He was hurried and lacking rhythm when working from the pocket. Processing decision-making is not great. Struggles to make anticipatory throws. Success rate plummets when forced to come off primary option. Good thing if he plays for the Steelers, that's not an issue. Fires hard to catch rockets underneath targets. Sails deep outs and forces crossing routes to break stride to catch it. And slow to feel mounting pressure and take too many sacks, and inconsistent trajectory on intermediate and deep touch throws. So basically what most of those weaknesses were about is his inaccuracy as a quarterback and his poor decision making, which I think is something they've talked about a lot. That comes up on tape a bunch, but he is very speedy. This is the argument I have for Jalen Milroe, kind of just the same thing with Shedeur I talked about, is remember our two wide receivers on the outside are DK Metcalf and George Pickens, and he likes to throw it deep. What I will say is what's intriguing about Milroe as an option, even though he's not an accurate passer, and they just talked about how his decision making is poor and it kind of throws the first guy, is that his legs are such a weapon that when you have a deep threat like Pickens and Metcalf, and he has the arm strength to get it there, it's either he's throwing it to them or you need to have but you also need to have a spine on him because he could just run it instead. And that's a huge weapon. That's kind of why I wanted the Steelers to keep Justin Fields, because of them getting DK Metcalf. I thought, man, they have these two big deep threats. They have a middle guy, and with Fields' weapons as his legs as a weapon, that's a scary combination. It's something that Lamar Jackson, for as talented and scary as he is, has been missing, because every receiver they've gotten has been a small, shifty guy. If they had a big, deep threat guy who could take the top off a defense and worried about Lamar's legs, I mean, good night, right? That's the super pro I see from Milroe. Also, his tape, as I don't know if you were able to see, Chris, is also highly covered by the 17-year-old Ryan Williams, who's a stud at a wide receiver. He also had a stud wide receiver to throw to, who made insane plays. Milroe is probably projected. I know it says second or third round, but like we just talked about, if it is true that the Browns take Travis Hunter first, I'm going to say this a billion times, and the Giants take Abdul Carter in the first round, they're both picking at the top of the second, and I think Milroe is a top option in the second, especially if Shedeur's still taking the first. I think Milroe's probably quarterback 3 in some of these guys' minds. And if he's not quarterback 3, he's quarterback 4, and they both need one. So it would be tough for the Steelers to get him unless he just really slipped and fell. Or, like I said, they traded back. Let's say they traded with that Giants pick, so the Giants could get Shedeur. They went to the Giants pick, and then the Browns took maybe someone who Chris is going to talk about, and then the Steelers could take him. You never know, right? But I do think that the weapons are there, the speed's there, that it could be an intriguing option, but it's not something that would be like dangerous. But it would be fun to watch, I think. Be entertaining.
Absolutely. And first, I got to give props to you, because I think this is like a 14-minute long highlight tape. And I was like, dang, Dom's really speaking through all of it right now. I was like, he's got a lot of info going on. But no, I mean, just to speak on Milroe and my thoughts on him, I really enjoy his tape a lot more. And again, you know, obviously he's playing against SEC teams. Alabama's kind of taken a downfall since Saban, stepped away. And so it's been kind of interesting to see how they're able to operate and still stay competitive. And they are. And I think obviously Milroe has played to some of their successes, but also, has a lot of areas to improve on. As you'd mentioned, the interceptions against SEC teams. To me, it's more of like a realistic expectation of what you'll kind of see transition into the NFL. But I mean, we got so used to Justin Fields' playing style at the beginning of the year, and I really liked it, and it's something I wanted to continue with. And quite frankly, I think it's something that fits a lot better with the Steelers' offensive schematics. And I think Milroe would actually be a way better fit for our offense, just with his certain skill set. I would hope that you'd be able to coach him up on a lot of his throwing, right, skill, which again, not to beat a dead horse, getting him underneath a veteran would be awesome and ideal for me. But, I just think with the way that he plays football, getting him involved in those RPOs, giving him the ability to pass the ball to the first option, which seems to be a Steeler thing to do. I think he would gel a lot better with our current offense, and I'd be excited to see some of the splash plays that he'd be able to make with his feet. And yeah, dude has a nice arm on him. Just needs to work on that accuracy a little bit. Trained to be a better quarterback, which hopefully is coachable.
I think with Milroe too, that with the weapons he provides on the legs, and like I said, I think his arm talent is very good, and he'll be throwing deep balls. I would he's so entertaining to watch that if Aaron Rodgers fell through or whatever have you, right? If they got Milrell, I would just start him because he's
Yeah.
not high enough of a pick to me where you couldn't pick somebody in the first round next year. And if he sucks, then that only kind of goes in their favor, to be honest.
Also, if it's really a competition between him and Mason Rudolph, I mean, Rudolph did great for us. I'm not going to, sit here and whatever, but I agree with you where, you obviously drafted this guy. I'd hate for him to sit behind Rudolph, and not get that playing time, especially because I don't know. I like to think George Pickens is going to be on the team for a while, but I have no idea of his status. And you might as well get him like confident with like Muth, Pickens, DK, all those guys. So
I think it's fair to say we don't know anything that's going on lately, to be honest. And I think that's the most frustrating thing about being a Steelers fan is that nothing really makes sense. And I feel like this year won't make any sense. So maybe they're planning for next year. We'll find out. But my last prospect for you is my favorite, mostly because of where I think he would be drafted and why I'm okay with that value. And that's Will Howard from Ohio State.
Willie Howard.
Will Howard, the tallest quarterback I've shown so far. He's 6'4", 235 pounds. He had 4,000 yards last year, 35 touchdowns, 10 picks, also aided by one of the best young wide receivers in the league in Jeremiah Smith. He was 19, 18, 17. I don't know. He's also very young. Very good wide receiver. I mean, a lot of these highlights you'll see in this are sometimes he'll just throw it to Jeremiah Smith and he'll just take it the distance. I also don't understand how people like Jeremiah Smith, there he is right there, or Ryan Williams just gets so wide open when they're that good. But I digress. Will Howard, NFL prospect .com, whatever, they do not like Will Howard. Give him a 5.9 average backup or special teamer. He got the 6 total quarterback score at 74. His NFL comp is the legend Blake Bortles. His draft projection is rounds 4 through 5. I don't agree with. I think third round is we're gonna have to get him. You would be lucky to get him in round 4 personally with all the
Daniel
teams
Jones run
quarterback. He's got Daniel Jones in him for sure. His strengths are outstanding size and toughness inside and outside the pocket. Elevated his consistency and performance in the postseason. He can work off platform. He throws with a grounded base with good mechanics. He delivers the ball with consistent accuracy to the frame. Able to buy time for routes to develop when pressured. Has poise and accuracy in touch and uses his legs on a zone read for short yardage carries. Weakness. I mean, all those things, Chris, are standard quarterback stuff that I love. That's like what I look for in a quarterback, those pros they just listed there. And I think his arm strength is very good. I don't know if it's going to say here in the weakness that his arm strength isn't good. I think it is good. I know there was somebody online who said they thought he had a weak arm. I disagree. I think it's stronger than Shedeur Sanders, and he's rated number 1. His weakness is very gradual in his setup and release on a 3-step drop. Can be mechanical and predictable from the pocket. Will struggle to beat NFL corners when throwing outside the numbers or into tight windows. I don't know if I super agree with that based on some of these things. Plus, the wide receivers we have should be able to beat that. So it's not really an issue. Not enough eye manipulation to keep defenders guessing. That's coachable. Is that not? Content with half field reads instead of getting through his progressions. That's every Steelers quarterback. Sounds like Steelers quarterback to me. And had some contested throws bailed out by receivers' ball skills, which again, yes, he's got one of the best guys. Actually, a great receiving staff, and Emeka, Jeremiah Smith, and Tate on there. So of course, he's got a great receiving staff and good running backs too. But the Steelers also have good weapons. We're going to bail him out of things. Doesn't really bother me that much. The reason why I like Will Howard is, as you can see, Chris, I think his accuracy is really good. I think his arm strength is good. I think he's good at throwing on the run. He does have some mobility. He does have some wheels. It kind of reminds me of Kenny Pickett. I know it's going to scare some of you fans, even though I liked Kenny Pickett. But the reason why I like it more now is because you're not getting Kenny Pickett in the first. You're getting him in the third or later. And that's what makes me more excited about this. I do think he can be productive. I like his tape in terms from a true quarterback position, something that's very classic of just throwing the ball and getting it out there, putting it on the money. And I think that getting him in the third or later would be awesome to have him, behind Mason Rudolph or behind a veteran. And I would be excited to see him play for the Steelers actually, and get him in there to start. I like his tape probably the most for the value of where he's going to be.
Yeah, no, I agree. Will Howard has some solid highlights here, and again, I mean, he's set up in a really good situation. So maybe that transition of all these studs on Ohio State would be really good for him, looking in the black and gold with all of our guys there. But no, he seems to keep his poise in the pocket, which is really nice. Obviously, he's played in a higher level of competition and in big moments. So, I mean, he definitely has that under his belt well. And I like that. I don't know. It doesn't seem to me that like running is his first option. You know, he definitely has it as a skill set to piggyback on. But I mean, that was a beautiful throw right there. Good lead. Yep. He's not afraid to throw the ball deep. And
there's another one. It's a touchdown.
Yeah, I just yeah, I feel like he is a solid pick. That's a super good throw.
There was a one throw earlier. You keep talking, but there was a throw earlier that I think was like my favorite on his play. You keep talking though.
Sure. I just recently watched a video with him and how he, hopefully not pulling a Josh Rosen. I don't know if you ever saw his like pre-draft conversations, but he was saying how, you know, he's going to take note of every quarterback that's taken before him and really wants to make every team regret not going for him. And you know, he feels like he did that in college with the lack of offers that he got, and like, you know, working his way up to here and how he's beating all these teams, which is cool. Like, obviously you want that determination and that like dog in you to compete. Josh Rosen said the exact same thing when he was drafted, second or third overall for Arizona, and I think
it was first, wasn't it? No, it was second. You're right. It wasn't first. It wasn't first. It was like, but I think it was like I think it was 11th. But regardless,
he was like, "I'm so good. Every team's gonna want me and regret not taking me," and no one regrets it. So, at least no one would regret if you did all right as a, you know, third or fourth round pick. So.
Yeah, that's like the main difference is, and this is the throw, by the way. That's like my favorite on this tape.
Ow, that's right a beauty. That is a beauty.
That's my thing though with this is that people talk about like, oh, he could be Josh Rosen, he could be Josh Allen, he could be Kenny Pickett, he could be Will Howard, right? My thing is that all those guys are drafted in the first round, and this guy is not going to be. He's not going to be drafted in the second round. I don't think. I'd be shocked if he was. Yeah. So to me, it's a third round selection, and that's something I can hang my hat on and be okay with to see how it goes.
Yes, sir.
That's my guys for you, Chris. The rest of Chris's guys though are people we have met with, so you never know what can happen. I think I'll let Chris set it up, but I kind of feel like I know who he wants to talk about first potentially, unless he wants to save the best for last.
No, I'm saving the best for last because a lot of these guys are doo-doo water.
Okay.
Not to preview the audience of what we're going into, but Dom, we're like, all right, we have to do quarterbacks, and then Dom's like, all right, I'm going to do these guys, and you're going to do these guys. And normally we switch off of like good talent, bad talent, you know, because we like to get variety. And what a fun position to get like the bad talent because I'm like, you're really not great. But anyway, I digress. Can we start with the Louisville guy?
Louisville. I actually don't even know. Oh yeah, I do know that is. I was like, who's that guy? I know that is. Tyler Shaw, I believe is maybe I pronounce it. I'm not sure actually.
You know, that's what we're going to talk about as a weakness. Is his name.
How to pronounce his name?
Yes.
You got it. Okay, I got it in there. Let me pause this real quick, and you can go ahead and start naming off the stats while I get this up.
This is Tyler Shog or Shock, or I know it's GH. Well, listening to the tape, they say like Shog or Shock or whatever.
Okay, man. But all right, never mind.
Dude, I don't know. Anyway, Tyler Shugi is what we're calling him. You know, Dom over here talking about his Iron Giant and Will Howard. Well, step aside because Tyler Shog is here, standing at 6'5", 219 pounds. So he's a big boy, Dom. And he's got some height to him. You know, watching his tape, it was okay. I feel like a lot of the times that he was making these good passes and completions, the guys were either wide open or, when he was making these throws, I saw a lot of passes from behind, which really isn't ideal when you're looking at a highlight tape. I also saw a few RPOs, which, thinking about the last quarterback that got drafted out of Louisville was Lamar Jackson. I was like, oh, they must have a particular type until I looked at his stats and he had like 49 rushing yards. And I was like, oh, so it must have worked well for that one play and never again.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Tyler Shogg is an interesting fella, and I feel like his measurables is really what gets people's eyes. He does make occasional good throws, and his level of competition necessarily isn't the highest. But plays like that where the receivers full on stopping, and you'll see it a few more times from this highlight reel. It's just wide open. You hope he makes those throws, but you can never truly rely on it, at least from what I was seeing. He does have some speed to him. He ran a 4.63, which for a quarterback and a big boy at that, that's pretty solid. I know, I think it was Ollie Gordon that ran a 4.61, who we just talked about at running back. So why draft him when we have Tyler Shogg?
Very true.
Here's the interesting thing about this man is he is 40 years old. I'm just joking, but he has also been old. Playing since 2018. So he is 26. Oh,
he's turning 26
in September.
Yeah.
He, according to the draft analysis, he plays with good field vision, using his eyes to hold defenses and sets up throwing windows. Shogg is confident, accurate when protected, and there's a few throws I saw on him too when pressure did get up to him. He landed a couple good throws. In the next sentence, it literally says some pressure mounts leading to spotty decisions and big sacks. Obviously, this is a highlight reel that we're watching, so they're gonna show the best of the best. But I felt like a play like that, especially when he's about to get sacked, he had a nice sidearm sling back of the end zone. The receiver made an excellent grab for it. But realistically, I think the biggest surprise to his analysis is the fact that his draft projection was rounds 2 to 3. And the only reason there's a few reasons I'm surprised about that, but the biggest one is just because the guy we literally just watched in Will Howard being a 4 to 5, like that does not make much sense judging the level of competition and the throws he was actually making. So I just don't know maybe where people are seeing such impressive things out of this guy. But, I think if you were to get him, he'd kind of be either the second quarterback you draft or, like just a late round guy to have as a backup, in my opinion. In the draft, his production score is a 58, which ranked 14th among quarterbacks. I think there's only 14 quarterbacks that were there. The athleticism score was 76, which was 6th, and then total score of 68, which was a 12. He's rated as a good backup with potential to develop as a starter. And then just some of his weaknesses: he's sluggish to operate. He lacks poise and mobility to overcome turbulent pockets, occasional issues allowing routes to unwind and develop, falls way off delivery when pressure is mounting in front of him. Gunslinger mentality brings occasional lapse in decision-making and not enough extent to win when flushed from the pocket. His stats last year didn't necessarily jump out at me by any means. In the 12 games played, he had 3,200 yards practically, 23 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. Again, in my mind, playing in the ACC, you'd hope to be doing more, but there's really not much with his legs either. Like I said, he had, 19 yards and 1 touchdown. So again, I'm failing to see where the round 2 to 3 comps are coming in, specifically for this guy. Obviously we had that visit for him. I don't know what the Steelers' plans are or what their interest was. And I hate to sound like a broken record and really bag on Tyler Shogg. I hope I'm wrong, especially if we do get him, but that's just kind of my take on him. Dom?
Uh, there's I I mean, like, I hear what you're saying, and I actually don't disagree. I agree with you, but there's got to be something we're missing. Apparently,
I
I
know.
I do think that like the age thing is a big deal because on a 4-year rookie contract, he'd be turning 30 after his rookie year is over. That's pretty insane, right? So that hurts him a lot. But like I'm looking at YouTube. I mean, there are some really pretty throws in here. He definitely takes the chances to make the throws. But there are some, like you said, some things that slow down. But there are some really pretty throws. But just for the comments on this YouTube channel, someone said if he was 21 years old with a clean bill of health, he'd be in the first round. He'd be first pick overall. Someone said he's a superstar sleeper. Throwing under pressure is insane. Great ball placement. Here's a string of crazy things. Someone said, I see another Ben Roethlisberger, to which someone said, I agree. Someone said Troy Aikman. Someone said Tom Brady vibes. Someone said Joe Flacco with more athleticism.
Is this the school of the blind commenting right now? What is happening?
Yeah, someone said Josh Allen type. Yeah, this is kind of crazy. I don't know. I know he's big, but there's clearly something we're missing here from this. But I didn't hate his highlights by any means, but I hear what you're saying with like the stats and everything else. They probably should be like a little more proficient. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you know, it's especially if we're missing something, you can kind of chalk that up to. And now I'm not going to go. Why don't I look it up? But like I was going to say, you know, speaking of Ben Roethlisberger type, which I don't agree with, maybe they're just saying that because he's 6'5", you know?
Yeah.
But you have to remember what we've talked about. There's not a college quarterback factory school because like legendary good quarterbacks kind of come from all over the place, right?
Yeah.
And Big Ben is one of them, where a quarterback's probably never going to come from the University of Miami, Ohio, ever again.
Ever again. Never.
In the first round. He played against pretty what even conference is that? The MAC conference. So he wasn't playing against the best of the best in the MAC.
Yeah.
And how many touchdowns did you say he had?
23.
Okay, yeah. So even like that comparison too doesn't make sense because Big Ben in his final year in the MAC again playing in lower competition, although Big Ben was touted as a first round pick. Big Ben had 4,500 yards, 37 touchdowns, and 10 picks in his final year at Miami, Ohio. You know, so I mean, there's a reason why he also went that high too, but he also played against like garbage. I don't know. There's clearly something we're missing here. I'm not sure what it is.
He did, but my point is, again, it's like when you play in those divisions and you're this top rated quarterback, don't you expect to be more dominant? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, and here's a nod towards shit, but like the dude still threw like what 40 touchdowns or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. So even that, at least it showed that he was like, okay, yards. This isn't some mistake of me being highly rated. Like, yeah, my record might not have showed, but at least I belong here. Tyler Shug. I have no idea how to say his name. Yeah, it just I don't get it.
Sugar booger. If he can stay healthy, he can be the next Matthew Stafford.
In what league? The CFL?
People really like this guy for some reason. We'll have to find out. I think this is what's fun about us doing it because clearly, like, you're not a big fan of him. It's kind of hard for me to judge based on this like formative tape. I think there's some good things there, but I agree with the stats. I agree with what you're saying. It'd be interesting to see like what he amounts to in the NFL, and if it's nothing, we could come back to this and be like, yeah, dude, we saw that. And if it's like if he is the next Matthew Stafford, Big Ben, Troy Aikman, Josh Allen, Tom Brady, then yeah, bro, we got it wrong. That's the way it goes.
For sure.
Quarterbacks are kind of crazy like that. So you never know.
Yeah. I mean, Tom Brady wasn't turning heads at Michigan.
No, Russell Wilson wasn't doing that much. He popped off, not last year, but for Seattle for a little bit. Never know.
Anyway, next guy I'm going to go with is Kyle McCord.
Josh Allen too wasn't going crazy in college.
More so, but yeah.
More than this, but yeah. Kyle McCord. Go for it.
Kyle McCord, the former Ohio State quarterback, once playing
did see that.
behind C.J. Stroud, and then Will Howard came nipping at his heels. So he said, I'm out of here. Entered the transfer portal and then played his last season at Syracuse. The dude is
Nice.
6'3", 218 pounds. And, out of him, I enjoyed what I was seeing more so just because, you can tell that he's played against some higher competition. His stats really showed that, and he was making some solid throws. There's still a few like technique parts that I don't really like about him. It seems like he really short arms his throws a lot, and you'll see that in every single one.
Yeah. I was gonna say, or like that pass right there was like clean pocket, but off his back foot. So
yeah, there's definitely some mechanical issues there for him, which you hope to coach up and work on. But that's just kind of my biggest downfall for him, just off of what I was watching. But he does make some pretty solid reads, some good throws here and there. I just wish he would, maybe stay a little bit more consistent. I say consistency is not his best trait. But anyway, going through the combine, he had a production score of 69, which ranked him 7th amongst all quarterbacks. His athleticism score, which means he probably won't be a Steeler, was 57, which was 15th out of all quarterbacks, and with a total score of 66, putting him 13th overall out of all QBs. Now, his NFL comp is pretty interesting, Dom, because he's compared to the MVP, Mr. Mitchell Trubisky, which
a potential 6th round pick or later projected to Mitchell Trubisky is crazy.
Which is hilarious that you say that, because his draft projection on here is actually rounds 3 and 4, which I don't see either.
No, later.
It's probably not going to happen, but either way, Kyle McCord is a pocket passer with good size who played in high volume pro passing schemes that will help him out as he transitions into the NFL. As stated on here, he was inconsistent at Ohio State, which I think led to his downfall and wanting to enter the transfer portal. It was good to see him do well at Syracuse, as in his last season, I love my computer. He led the ACC in both completions, attempts, yards, and interceptions. But he had 4,779 passing yards. So pretty dang good for 13 games. He had 34 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. So he pretty much balled out, which is probably giving him the nod to go here, plus his experience playing in Ohio State's offense.
So the ACC, you said, right?
Yeah, the ACC.
That's what Tyler Shogg is, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. What's better about Tyler Shogg than this guy? I don't know, but apparently a lot of other people think he's better. So anyway, people talk about his fundamentals being pretty solid typically, and he has a lot of poise when he's facing pressure. He doesn't really have enough of that arm strength to make those big throws or make those tight window throws. And as he was going through his college career, I guess people started considering him a check down Charlie, being only able to hit like chunk throws, and his decision making ball placement wasn't always a great fit, is because they compare him to also having a gunslinger mentality. So you kind of got to be making a lot of those high volume, big throws when you come with that mentality. But he does have the size and tangibles, I think, to be good. I think just a few mechanics and technical pieces could make him a lot better. Some strengths he had was he plays with an attacking mindset to challenge defenses, allows routes to breathe and mature when necessary. So he's looking at not just his first option. He reads coverages well and progressions high to low when possible. He has a good feel for buying time and beating the blitz. Some of his weaknesses, along with some of the things I said, a below average twitch to get the ball out quickly when needed, Tight trunk makes it tough to square and deliver on rollouts. Slower operation time allows corners to pounce and closes windows, which is kind of funny because I feel like a strength of his that they said was like, he's able to allow things to mature. And this is like, contradicts that. But anyway, throws back into the middle of the field when scrambling. Well, I don't know why we don't throw it in the middle of the field. Maybe he's a good fit for us. Too willing to throw at covered target despite lurking coverage and allows edge pressure to close and sack him without climbing. So to me, the weakness is there's a lot of, like I had mentioned, techniques that go in with it. I think Kyle McCord is a fine quarterback. He's not, to me, anyone that like necessarily moves the needle. But I liked his tape a lot more than Tyler Shog. I'm really struggling with that name and player. But who knows? He could really make an excellent backup on a team or maybe even develop into a starter. I think, like we had said probably 6,000 times on this podcast already, great situation for any young quarterback to get into. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But Dom, what do you think of Kyle McCord?
I kind of like him for the same reason I like Will Howard, is because I like his tape because I picture him being in the 5th round or later, and I think that's what I like about it. I think Tyler did have like probably a better deep ball. I can see that because his deep balls are more moonball-y, like Russell Wilson, not the arm strength, but just more the arch on it. But I mean, he's thrown it a bunch. It sounds like he's got the experience to do so. He's probably better than what people are giving him credit for, in my opinion. But when you say something that it's not that doesn't mean I want to jump him and get him in the 3rd. Don't get me wrong. But if he was there in the 5th and you haven't got a quarterback yet, I mean, yeah, dude, why not? Looks like he can play the part. He likes to sling it, like you said. It looks like he likes to sling it. So I would say he'd be a really solid backup for a Mason Rudolph and or Aaron Rodgers potentially. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all as a later round pick for sure.
Cool. On to my last and the most deserving of my time.
I do want to see real quick comments on this. Is this kid is underrated? Future Steeler, hopefully a future Steeler, future Dolphin. This is from Kyle McCord, by the way. Best quarterback in the draft. McCord is the best quarterback in the draft. 2016 Derek Carr vibes. He plays like he's wearing jeans. Pretty good. I'll leave it off on that. Okay.
Oh, that's hilarious. All right, my last guy is Mr. Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss.
Let's do the 22 tape, huh? 22 minutes.
Oh, I thought you meant like 2022, and I was like, yeah, no, I guess.
We'll do 22 minutes.
So a little background for the people at home as to why I am such a fan of Jackson Dart and what really caught me onto him. It was not watching his tape. It was not. I am a big Trey Harris fan. I think he's going to be an excellent wide receiver. But as I was watching his tape, I couldn't help but notice what beautifully placed balls this quarterback is throwing for this man. Every time it's a complete dime to these wide receivers. And he's throwing it with such poise, such swagger, some may say. But something about Jackson Dart that I really like about him is when we're talking about a gunslinger mentality and you're looking at these highlights, the dude is not afraid to really huck the ball downfield. I've seen reports of people being like, a lot of Ole Miss's play style are checkdowns. A lot of what they do, they just keep running the same play and it's all screens smooth down the field. I completely disagree, and I think his stats would really say otherwise, along with a lot of these highlights. I mean, the dude is constantly making a lot of sideline throws, deep passes. He had the weapons to do so, but he's also not afraid to just sit in the pocket and then throw it downfield. And my personal NFL comp, I brought up Josh Allen for a reason because I think he has the ability and arm strength to throw it down there and get it there. But he's also pretty dang impressive on the ground. There's a few.
Your comp is Josh Allen.
Hold on.
I'm just saying, you better hold
Let
on.
me keep. I'm gonna hold on to it. Watch and
All right.
believe.
All right.
But anyway, when you start looking at his ability to run the ball, I think it also opens up that gameplay a lot too. And he doesn't just get hit and then fall down. The dude is taking an absolute beating and still making guys slide off of him and is able to get touchdowns, which I found to be impressive. But when we're, circling back to the whole check down argument and whatever, Dom, this dude led the SEC at the quarterback position in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different categories.
It's a big deal.
It is a big deal. Completion percentage is one, being a nearly 70% completion percentage. He led in yards with 4,279 yards. He did have 29 touchdowns passing and only 6 interceptions, but that also went along with his 500 rushing yards.
Not bad.
No,
that's
not at all.
200 less than Milrow, he was more of a runner. So
absolutely
not bad at
all. Anyway, moving on, his yards per attempt is 10.8. Led the league there. Led the league in adjusted yards gained after pass attempt. Led the league in yards gained per pass completion, and then yards per game, and just rating in general. So he's an efficient passer, and he really likes to pick apart defenses. I know another thing that people you really question him on is, he likes to look at his first read a lot. Hopefully that can be a coachable thing. But I also think the way that Ole Miss's offense is ran and with the talent that they have, you might not have to look at a bunch of other options. Like they have a lot of dogs on their team, and I think would be used to that transition over to playing with the Steelers. I'm extremely high on him. I don't know if you can tell. His biggest weakness is that he has an S following the X in his name, in my personal opinion. Don't really like the spelling there. But looking at the draft, his production score was an 80. He ranked 3rd amongst all quarterbacks. His athleticism was 8th with a 74. And his total score was 78, putting him 4th amongst all quarterbacks entering the draft. His draft projection is 1st or 2nd round with an NFL comp of Gardner Minshew.
It's crazy. That's crazy.
It is. It is crazy.
That's crazy the other way. Like the Josh Allen thing, I'm not super sold on, but I see where you're coming from. But then Gardner Minshew, and then you're gonna say he's a 1st to 2nd round prospect, and Gardner Minshew is undrafted. That's crazy.
Yeah, I just think he's a good talent. He has a lot of experience, especially playing at the high level. He started at USC, played his last 3 years at Ole Miss, and starting all those. So he has 45 career starts under his name in college football, which is really awesome. I don't know if I mentioned his height and everything, but he's 6'2", 223 pounds. So he has some good size to him. Let's see. Dart has a stocky build and average physical attributes, but good makeup and intangibles. He's fairly accurate and rarely overcomplicates things for himself. He won't strike anyone as a running quarterback, which is hilarious, but he can find tough yards on the ground, which I completely agree with. He can make full field reads, but looks more comfortable grazing from the looking through his...
Sound it out.
Are you looking at the same thing?
It just sounded out.
Tro?
Yeah. Sure.
What is that?
I actually wasn't looking at it. Let me see. Where are you at?
Hilarious. I'm just at his overview. But anyway, for those of you that don't know this, I can't really read. But anyway, he has good worker mentality. He works very hard. And he is just, to me, a very impressive quarterback who played against a lot of good competition. And Ole Miss did fairly well each year that he played. So
I believe that word is trough, by the way.
Trough? Whatever, dude. Don't intimidate me with these big, challenging words. NFL.com. He gets across the full field of progressions when he needs to. Pretty good situational decision maker on 3rd down. Throws with adequate accuracy and drive velocity between the hashes, recognizes potential trouble and gets away from it, beats man coverage when making predetermined throws, very accurate with his back shoulder fades. I just, I feel like I can't say enough good things about him. Obviously, we have to pinpoint some of his weaknesses, though. Deep zone coverages slowed his momentum and consistency. Has room for improvement with anticipatory throws versus zone. Lazy footwork forces him into muscled throws at times. Displayed inconsistencies with decisiveness in his reads. Lacks delivery quickness to afford getting behind on progressions. And throw feels very labored when he's forced to work off platform. I don't know, Dom. Obviously, you're watching him. I'm very high on him and pretty biased. I'm not going to lie to you, but what are your initial thoughts on Jackson Dart?
It's actually kind of like my first time watching Jackson Dart. I know you've talked about him a lot in the past, like a lot, and I see like a lot of the really good things about it. I mean, I think his arm strength is really good. I think he does have a lot of zip. He definitely, I feel with the gunslinger mentality. I think his release is a little long, which that's not a super problem. I also know that I know in the past people have talked about how they think that he's a one read kind of guy. And people think that he only throws to one read, but I've seen a lot of plays in this highlight tape where he has progressed the field a lot. Looks I like him a lot. Where I struggle with him is where we draft him, right? Because I actually do like him a lot, and I think like I said before, same thing that I said with Shedeur is if you think he's going to be, Trey Harris is your boy, not Shedeur. If you think Shedeur Sanders could be the quarterback of the future, your franchise guy, you got to take him when you have the chance, right? And that's the kind of the same mentality I have with Jackson Dart, even though Chris, I don't want to draft him at 21. And that's just how I feel about it. However,
Yeah.
it's is there a plan in place to get someone like him? We've talked about it with the whole trading up and down and for quarterbacks, especially with those people not taking quarterbacks in the first. So I alluded to earlier, but if Shedeur makes it to 21 and let's say the Steelers do not want him, but they want to trade the Giants and they go up and trade with the Giants to go there. Or matter of fact, maybe they do trade the Browns and they say F it because the Browns are ahead of the Giants, right? And they'll let the Browns come and get Shedeur so he can play with Travis Hunter and see how that goes for them. But they take the Browns number 2 pick and then they can, if they feel that good about Jackson Dart, they can take him then. He's not making it past the Browns and Giants in the second round. I'm telling you that right now. He will not make it past them. So there has to be some kind of situation. Maybe they trade down and stay in the first round and still take him. I don't know. It kind of depends on how the board falls. It kind of depends on how confident they are in him. But I agree with you, Chris. I think there's a lot of things I really like. I think he's probably out of the tapes I watch of top quarterback talents. I like his tape more than Shedeur. So let's just put it that way, right? From a pure quarterback passing, from a pure quarterback standpoint, and more athleticism too than Shedeur as well. Stronger arm. I like his tape more than Shedeur's. I don't know if I like either of them enough to take at 21, but that's a decision for the Steelers to make, not mine. It kind of depends on how the board falls. And I would say like in a tier of excitement for me on getting these quarterbacks, it'd be Dart and Will Howard in the same tier. It would then be followed by Milroe and McCord, depending on where they go. And then followed by like Shedeur and Shaw.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think that's completely fair. And what a bad year to miss out on a second round pick, in my opinion. just for this quarterback. I know obviously why we don't have our second round pick.
Right.
Yes, which I'm not going to complain about. I just wanted to know one more thing too about him when it comes to like, I talked about records and being a QB stat. I mean, or it's not a QB stat, but sometimes they're like very, what's the word I'm looking for? Like judged by it. Right. His first year there was a little rough. They were 8-5 with a 4-4 conference record, but then the year before or after that, they were 11-2 with a 6-2 conference record in the SEC, and then last year they were 10-3 with a 5-3 record. So not only are they having success in the year as a whole, but also they're proving to have success within their own conference as well. Which again, SEC is very impressive. It's one of the hardest in football. So I can see why his stock is rising. But yeah, look out for Jackson Dart draft day.
They said his arm strength is high, right?
Yes.
Because I think his arm strength is better than Shadur's. I do think some balls float a little bit, which could be a knock on him for someone who's rated as high as he is. But I do think his arm strength is higher. That was a great throw, right on the money. Again, would be aided extremely well by George Pickens and DK Metcalf.
Very well.
What a tandem to throw to. Speaking of, we got some comments right here. All he needs is Metcalf and Pickens, as you can see right here.
I'm saying.
Let's go Jackson Dart, best quarterback in the draft. I think getting this guy in the first round would be a reach. It's kind of what I'm saying, but you never know with the quarterbacks. Jackson to Vikings. That's a crazy one since they have JJ McCarthy. Thank you. He's either going to Pittsburgh or the Giants will trade up for him. What did someone say that? Someone said Saints. I want to see the Saints go after Dart over Sanders, best quarterback in the draft. I wouldn't pick him over Sanders, but I would pick him over Milroe. Wow, what a
take.
Second, possibly third rounder. That's not true. All day to throw to wide open receivers, back up at best. People are kind of up and down on him, right?
Yeah.
Noodle arm. I don't agree with that.
Wow.
No, I think he's good. Again, like I said, where I struggle is because we don't know how the draft's going to shake out. Do the Steelers move back? Do they stay put? I'm hearing that a lot of it doesn't sound like teams want to trade up, right? Because of the talent of this draft isn't like there's not a lot of first round talent in every position in this draft. There's like a muddy mess of second round to third round picks in this draft.
Sure,
like just a lot, and it seems like teams don't really want to trade up. Every team would rather trade back and get more picks because there's a lot of talent in the second and third rounds. An option for Dart, the only viable one I can see is either drafting them first round overall or trading with the Giants or Browns and drafting them then, and then maybe seeing what else you can get out of that pick. You know,
are you saying like to trade back?
To trade back.
Okay. I was like, I don't think we're moving up that high.
No. To trade back. Because I don't think they're taking a quarterback at 2 and 3.
Sure.
So that's the only thing I can see. Or trade back in the first round in general and try to get some more capital, and then take them later in the first, like at 28.
That's fair.
At 30 even. You know. But that'll do it. That's the quarterbacks for you. We'll see who they pick up. I do think they're going to go. If I had to tell you right now, I think I'm going to go D lineman, quarterback, running back, cornerback, and an offensive lineman, and maybe a safety, maybe.
And you know what?
I don't know if they're going to go wide receiver, but like we talked about in our episode, if you listen to that, if they do go wide receiver and they go for a high, be very afraid for George Pickens.
You know, and honestly, I challenge all of you listening to do some of your own research, because Dom and I are not college football watchers by any means. So you hearing that might discredit everything. But here's the thing. We enjoy it. We watch the tape. We see what we like and what would be a good fit for the Steelers. And our track record has been pretty dang good in the last few years. So it's a lot of fun. It gets you involved. It gets you into something else. See what guys are out there for the positions we didn't cover. See who's out there for the positions we did, and formulate your own opinions. But yeah, it's been fun. We'll see what happens on draft weekend.
Yep, and we'll be there live. That'll be episode 100, a special episode. We'll do another episode recapping the draft, and maybe we'll never see you again. We'll find out. Until then, you can follow us on Northern Steel Podcast at TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, MySpace, Grubhub, Pizza Hut, and Super 8 Rewards member club. Chris, do you have any last words for the final people? Any final what? What did I just say? I think I had a seizure. Do you have any final words to the people?
Yeah. Draft Jackson Dart. No, I'm kidding. Go Steelers.
We'll find out in a week. Ooh. Go Steelers. Peace.
Deuces.